The phone buzzed in my hand, its screen glowing like a traitor in the dark. I wasn't supposed to find it, tucked beneath a pile of Caleb's old band tees in the back of our closet, but its faint vibration had drawn me like a moth to flame. My heart thundered as I swiped it open. No passcode, just a single text. Miss you, love. Call me. I'm Ezra Kane, 28, a graphic designer with a knack for seeing patterns where others see chaos. I'd always thought Caleb Rivers, my boyfriend of 3 years, was my one constant in the unpredictable swirl of Seattle's art scene. But that night, in our cramped Capitol Hill apartment, the world I'd built with him began to fracture. It was late, the kind of late where the city hums quieter and the streetlights cast long shadows through our window. Caleb was at band practice, or so he said, his guitar case slung over his shoulder as he kissed me goodbye. "Love you, EZ," he'd whispered, his hazel eyes crinkling with that smile I'd fallen for at a dive bar open mic. I'd believed him. I always did. But the phone wasn't his usual one. It was a cheap burner, the kind you buy at a gas station for cash. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through the texts, each one a dagger. "Can't wait to see you again. You make me feel alive." The sender's name was listed only as J. No face, no context, just a string of messages that painted a life I didn't know Caleb had. I sank onto the couch, the phone heavy in my hand. We'd built something real, hadn't we? 3 years of late-night talks, of him strumming melodies while I sketched, of shared dreams about leaving the city for a quiet life up in Bellingham. Was it all a lie? The front door creaked open, and Caleb stepped in, his flannel shirt slightly untucked, his auburn hair mussed from the autumn wind. "Hey, babe," he called, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I held up the phone, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "Who's Jay?" His face froze, the easy grin vanishing like a snuffed-out candle. "Easy. Where'd you find that?" he asked, his voice low, almost a growl. He took a step toward me, but I backed away, the phone a barrier between us. "Who is Jay, Caleb?" I repeated, louder, the question cutting through the air like glass. He ran a hand through his hair, eyes darting to the floor. "It's not what you think," he said, but the words sounded hollow, rehearsed. I wanted to believe him, to cling to the Caleb who'd held me through panic attacks and danced with me in the kitchen to old jazz records. But the phone burned in my hand, its secrets louder than his promises. "Tell me the truth," I said, my voice cracking, "because I can't keep loving someone who's lying to me." Caleb's shoulders slumped, and for a moment, he looked smaller, not the confident musician who commanded a stage. "Easy. I swear, it's not about us. It's complicated." "Complicated?" I laughed, bitter and sharp. "You've got a secret phone, Caleb. You're texting someone else. I love you. How is that complicated?" He reached for me, but I pulled back, the distance between us growing with every heartbeat. "I need time," I said, grabbing my jacket and heading for the door. The cool night air hit me like a slap as I stepped onto the street, the phone still clutched in my hand. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't stay in that apartment, surrounded by the ghosts of our promises. I wandered through Capitol Hill, past neon-lit bars and murals splashed across brick walls. My mind raced, replaying every moment with Caleb, the way he'd laugh at my terrible puns, the way he'd hold me when the world felt too heavy. Was it all an act? Who was Jay? And why did Caleb need a secret phone to talk to them? I ended up at Volunteer Park, the same place where Caleb and I had our first date. The cedar trees loomed overhead, their branches swaying in the breeze. I sat on a bench, the phone screen still glowing with Jay's texts. I wanted to hurl it into the darkness, but instead, I opened the contacts. Just one name, Jay. No last name, no details. I hesitated, then typed a message. "Who are you?" The reply came almost instantly. "Who's this?" My heart pounded. I typed back, "Ezra, Caleb's boyfriend." "Who are you?" to him. No response. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. I stared at the screen, willing it to light up, but it stayed dark. The park felt emptier now, the city's hum a distant echo. I didn't know what hurt more, the betrayal or the not knowing. The rain started as I left the park, a cold drizzle that mirrored the chill in my chest. I hadn't slept, the burner phone's unanswered text haunting me through the night. By morning, I was back at our apartment, but Caleb was gone. No note, no text on his real phone. Just silence. I couldn't sit still. I grabbed my sketchbook, hoping to drown my thoughts in lines and shapes, but every stroke felt like a question mark. Who was Jay? A lover? A friend? Someone from Caleb's past he couldn't let go? I needed answers, but the only clue was that damn phone. By noon, I was pacing the apartment, the walls closing in. I called Caleb's bandmate, Tara, a no-nonsense drummer with a knack for cutting through bullshit. "He's been weird lately," she admitted over the phone, her voice crackling through the rain. Distracted, kept checking his phone during practice, but not his usual one. I thought he was just stressed about the gig. "What gig?" I asked, my stomach twisting. Caleb hadn't mentioned any shows. "Some last-minute thing in Tacoma tomorrow," Tara said. "He didn't tell you?" I hung up, my mind racing. Tacoma was an hour away, far enough for secrets to hide. I grabbed the burner phone and scrolled through the texts again. One caught my eye, dated a week ago. "Meet me at the usual spot in T. Love you." I didn't think. I grabbed my keys, the phone, and a hoodie, and drove south through the rain. Tacoma's industrial waterfront was a blur of gray as I pulled into a lot near the address I'd found in the phone's GPS history, a dive bar called the Rusty Anchor. It was the kind of place Caleb loved, gritty, loud, with a stage barely big enough for his band's ego. Inside, the air smelled of stale beer and regret. I scanned the crowd, my heart hammering. No Caleb, but the bartender, a wiry guy with a nose ring, recognized me from a gig we'd attended together. "Looking for Caleb?" he asked, wiping down the bar. "Yeah," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "He here?" "Nah, but he was last week." "With some guy?" Quiet type, kept to themselves in the corner. My throat tightened. "What did he look like?" The bartender shrugged. "Mid-20s, maybe? Dark hair, glasses." Didn't catch his name. I nodded, the description burning into my brain. I left the bar and stood by the water, the rain soaking through my hoodie. The burner phone buzzed in my pocket. A new text from Jay. "Meet me tonight. Same place. 8 p.m. I stared at the message, my pulse racing. This was my chance. I didn't know if I was walking into a trap or a truth, but I had to know who Jay was. I drove back to Seattle, the city's skyline looming through the mist. By 7:30, I was back at the Rusty Anchor, parked across the street, watching the entrance like a hawk. At 8:02, a figure stepped out of a cab. Male, mid-20s, dark hair, glasses. He wore a navy peacoat and moved with a nervous energy, glancing around before slipping inside. My hands shook as I followed, keeping my distance. The bar was louder now, a local band butchering a Nirvana cover. I spotted him in the corner, nursing a beer, his eyes fixed on the door. I slid into a booth nearby, my heart in my throat. Was this Jay? The man Caleb loved enough to hide a phone for? I wanted to storm over, demand answers, but something held me back. Fear, maybe, or hope that this was all a misunderstanding. Then Caleb walked in. My Caleb, in his leather jacket, his hair damp from the rain. He scanned the room, his eyes landing on the man in the corner. Their smiles were instant, private, like they shared a secret language. Caleb slid into the booth across from him, their hands brushing briefly under the table. I couldn't breathe. The room spun, the music a dull roar in my ears. I wanted to scream, to shatter their moment, but my legs wouldn't move. Instead, I watched, frozen, as Caleb leaned in, whispering something that made the other man laugh. I don't know how long I sat there, but when I finally stood, my vision blurred with tears. I stumbled outside, the rain a cold slap against my face. The burner phone felt like a brick in my pocket. I pulled it out and typed, "I saw you with him." I hit send before I could stop myself. The text hung in the air like a guillotine. I stood outside the rusty anchor, rain soaking my shoes, waiting for Caleb's response. My phone buzzed first, his real phone, not the burner. "Easy, where are you? We need to talk." I didn't reply. I couldn't. The image of Caleb with that man, Jay, I assumed, burned behind my eyes. I drove back to Seattle, the road a blur of headlights and regret. By the time I reached our apartment, Caleb was there, pacing the living room, his face a mix of guilt and desperation. "Ezra," he started, but I cut him off. "I saw you," I said, my voice low, trembling. "At the bar. With him." Caleb's eyes widened, but he didn't deny it. "It's not what you think," he said again, the same tired line. "Then what is it?" I shouted, throwing the burner phone onto the couch. "Who is he, Caleb? Why do you have a secret phone? Why are you telling someone else you love them?" He flinched, like my words were physical blows. "His name's Julian," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "He's someone from my past." "Your past?" I laughed, the sound brittle. "You're meeting him in secret, texting him, 'I love you.' That's not the past, Caleb. That's now." He sank onto the couch, head in his hands. "Julian was my first love," he said, the words spilling out like a confession. "We were together in college, before I moved to Seattle. He was everything. But his family didn't accept him, us. They sent him to conversion therapy. I didn't see him for years." My anger faltered, replaced by a pang of sympathy I didn't want to feel. "So why now?" I asked. "Why the secrets?" Caleb looked up, his eyes red. "He reached out 6 months ago. He was in a bad place, easy. Depressed, alone. He needed someone, and I couldn't turn him away." "So you lied to me?" My voice cracked. "You let me think we were building a life together while you were sneaking off to Tacoma?" "It wasn't like that," Caleb said, standing now, his voice urgent. "I love you, Ezra. What I feel for Julian, it's different. It's not romantic, not anymore. It's responsibility. Guilt, maybe. I owe him." "You owe him?" I repeated, incredulous. "What about me? What do you owe me?" Caleb reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "I owe you everything," he said softly. "I should have told you. I was scared you'd think it was something it wasn't." I wanted to believe him, but the hurt was too raw. "I need space," I said, grabbing my keys. "I can't do this right now." I ended up on the rooftop of our building, the city sprawling below like a glittering lie. The rain had stopped, leaving the air sharp and cold. I thought about Julian, about the pain Caleb described. I hated him for existing, for pulling Caleb back into a past I couldn't touch. But I also hated myself for not seeing it sooner, for missing the cracks in Caleb's smiles. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Julian, can we talk? I don't want to ruin what you have." I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to erase Julian from my life. But another part, the part that still loved Caleb, despite everything, needed to know the truth. I typed back, "Tomorrow. Coffee shop on Pike Street. 10 a.m. The coffee shop smelled of roasted beans and second chances. I sat across from Julian, his glasses fogging slightly from the steam of his latte. He was younger than I'd expected, 25 maybe, with a quiet intensity that made me feel like he was studying me as much as I was studying him. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, his voice soft but steady. "I didn't know about you. Not at first." I nodded, unsure what to say. The anger I'd carried last night had dulled into something heavier. Grief, maybe, for the trust I'd lost. "Why the secret phone?" I asked, cutting to the chase. Julian's fingers tightened around his mug. Caleb was protecting me. My family, they still don't know I'm out. If they found out I was talking to him, they'd cut me off completely. I leaned back, processing. So you're not together? No, Julian said firmly. Not like that. Caleb's been helping me rebuild. Therapy, a new job. He's the only one who knows what I went through. The door chimed, and Caleb walked in, his eyes finding us instantly. He froze, like he wasn't sure he was welcome. I nodded slightly, and he joined us, sitting beside me, but keeping his hands to himself. Easy. I'm sorry, Caleb said, his voice raw. I should have told you everything. Julian spoke up. This is my fault. I asked him to keep it quiet. I didn't want to drag anyone else into my mess. I looked between them, the pieces clicking into place. Caleb's secrecy wasn't about love for Julian, not the romantic kind. It was about loyalty, about saving someone who'd been broken by a world that didn't accept him. I understood that, more than I wanted to admit. I'd faced my own battles, disapproving parents, whispered slurs in small-town Ohio before I moved to Seattle. Why didn't you trust me? I asked Caleb, my voice quieter now. He reached for my hand, and this time, I let him. I was scared, he admitted. Scared you'd think I was choosing him over you. Scared I'd lose you. The coffee shop felt smaller, the world narrowing to the three of us. I looked at Julian, saw the weight he carried, and realized he wasn't my enemy. He was just someone trying to survive, like me, like Caleb. I don't want to lose you either, I said finally, my voice steady. But no more secrets. If we're going to make this work, I need all of you, truth and all. Caleb nodded, his eyes glistening. No more secrets. I promise. Julian stood, offering a small smile. I'll give you two some space. Ezra, thank you for listening. As he left, I felt lighter, like the air had cleared after a storm. Caleb and I sat in silence for a moment, our hands still linked. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. But as the sunrise painted the coffee shop gold, I saw a future worth fighting for. Not just with Caleb, but with myself, learning to love through the mess of being human. We walked out together, the city waking around us. And for the first time in days, I believed in us again.